are back. Tim, how goes the cutting?
Oh, it's you know what? I really hate the fact that I know how to do a lot of stuff. The more stuff you know how to do, the more stuff you'll end up doing, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a pretty good editor, so here I am. I'm editing my movie, and I'm like, I'm going to be one of those guys. You know what I mean? And I have an editor, a guy, Mel Rodriguez.
Sure.
We know Mel.
Sure, we know Mel.
Editor. And Mel's going to come in and do the final cut of the movie. But I got to tell you, like, you stand there, you edit. You just came in. I'm showing you.
Yeah.
Wait, does this work? Am I selling this?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that's working.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like being back in, you know.
Well, my last week and a few days has been all about kindergarten again. There she is.
Oh my God, she's just way too tall for kindergarten.
See, now this is what's kind of awesome. Is I was afraid I don't want her to be the freak tall girl in class, like, you know, because when I was in kindergarten, there was this one kid in the class who was at least a foot taller than everyone else. I just looked at my kindergarten class photo again, like a few months ago, and you think he's a teacher until you realize, holy cow, that's a 5-year-old, and he's like 6 foot. I mean, he's like 5 foot, basically, but he's a big dude, right? Yeah. He's just a big kid. And I'm sure he's, you know, playing volleyball somewhere now or something, or retired, who knows. But yeah, I didn't want her to be like the freak tall girl. Oh, no. There are 2 other kids in the class, both girls, who are taller.
Oh, good.
So it's like the 3 Amazon women of the kindergarten class, and they're all just so sweet.
It is nice if you don't have anything that particularly makes you stand out. If you do, though, I will recommend this as an old elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
And this is what I used to do. I would take that thing that made that kid stand out, and I would make that the coolest thing on the planet.
You know, I will say this: her teacher is amazing. What has changed since I was in kindergarten, at least apparently, is that there's a lot of homework for the adults. Like, we have a lot of stuff to keep track of. There's this thing on Mondays and Wednesdays. She's got to wear the shoes for PE, and then there's this pouch, and then there's this envelope and this thing to do, and there's a lot of stuff to keep track of.
So kindergarten's not about, you know, the cookies, the milk, take a nap, and not anymore.
No. There are books to read that she reads to us and that we read to her. There's all kinds of stuff.
Kindergarten. Yeah, you should tell the folks, Hero, it's literally in the same... Is it school or classroom?
She is in the classroom adjacent to what was my kindergarten classroom. The TK classroom is my old kindergarten classroom. The one that she's in, they share a wall and doors, so they're kind of interactive. They're adjacent classrooms. But yeah, she is literally right next door to where I was in kindergarten.
That is just, you know, doesn't tell me America doesn't. It's fantastic.
Yes, indeed. So that being said, lots of just wild and nutty stuff has been happening in the movie world. Movie Pass looks like it's
couldn't figure it out.
It's in a death spiral. They are just not able to sort that out. But again, as I have said so many times, the silver lining there is that they made an assumption. And they didn't go far enough. They made an assumption that people really wanted to go to the movies.
Which was correct.
Which is correct. What they didn't count on was people really, really wanted to go to the movies.
Yeah. Even the dumb ones that cost a lot.
That's it. They didn't expect that once you bring the price point down to a certain level, that many people were willing to run away from Netflix and television and cable and VOD and everything else and go to the movies. Which is a good thing, because what that tells us now, and that's you know, it's like short selling in the stocks, right? Where you're betting against a thing to sort of send information to the market that something is more valuable than that thing. I mean, that's a lame way of putting it, but it's what it tells us is that even though this company is probably going to go down, everyone else now has this information.
Yeah,
and this information being, hey. For a little bit less, you get a lot more people to the movies.
Thus, the various different chains come up with their own models of Movie Pass.
Yep.
AMC, and I imagine you'll simply just have that all across the country. And I think that's, you know, they're going to be the winners at the end of the day because they own the real estate. And they can decide ultimately what they want folks to pay to come inside those doors. And once you know, Movie Pass showed them, hey, there's this thing that could be done. There's just no reason for them not to do it. I don't think they'll be as successful because I think the natural price point is just a little bit higher than where the price point that made all those people go to the movies.
Yep.
That's the actual price point that will send people to the movies.
Yes, exactly.
When you go up $5, you just moved off the price point. The elasticity is not as much as they would like it to be.
It very true. That's it. I mean, we're sort of learning now where these price points are. So we'll see where it all goes. But I'm largely optimistic. So we have a giveaway today, which we'll get to a little bit later, which relates to a lot of our fine material here, these classic movies, which we're going to start off with. And we got some really great cult stuff. So I'm going to get cranking away on some of this cult stuff. It is, I think it's fascinating to me, and has been for quite some time, how the cult stuff really thrives on DVD and Blu-ray still. There's a real market out there for just the fringiest, weirdest stuff, and I'm grateful for it. I'm glad. Now, this is not a cult film, but it wants to be a cult film. This is called The Song of Solomon, and this is from Unearthed Films. This is just a really great, old-fashioned kind of just gore, psycho, culty horror movie. That's it. And it's the kind of thing that would have been made in the late '60s, or it's like Hills Have Eyes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's that Wes Craven, John Carpenter kind of Toby Hooper thing, right? Yeah. It's in that vein. And it's in this case, it's really like taking The Exorcist above and beyond. It's exorcism and gore, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But you know what? It's fine. It pushes all those buttons. Genre fans will totally love it. It's called The Song of Solomon, made by Unearthed Films, which I think is a great title, and that's being released on Blu-ray from MVD. And then Brooke Adams in The Unborn.
Man.
Yes, The Unborn.
I was so nuts about Brooke Adams.
This is from 1991. This is kind of on the tail end of the 80s underground horror explosion, which included things like Reanimator and a lot of those later John Carpenter and Wes Craven things. The Unborn really kind of continues a genre that began with It's Alive and Rosemary's Baby, right? The evil devil child, whatever it is. Which is a horrifying thing to think that, something is growing inside you and it's not human. So anyway, this is it kind of combines that with the mad scientist thing, and Brooke Adams plays a woman who gets inseminated with some kind of a weird, freakish fetus by this psycho doctor, and we all know what happens after that. What's interesting about this is that today we are recording on the day that I'm headed into Film Week in a moment.
Yeah.
There's a film we're doing for Film Week called Cynthia, which is almost exactly this kind of thing, except with really bad prosthetics, and it's meant to be a comedy, and it's not funny.
You know what's funny about Unborn?
Huh.
Both Kathy Griffin and Lisa Kudrow are in that movie.
Really?
Very young Kathy Griffin. Well, not that young. Lisa Kudrow was about to make real money on Friends around the time she was.
Now I gotta go watch it again. Yeah. That's kind of that now. Okay, see, now you got me. We've also got a trio from Vinegar Syndrome. Now, Vinegar Syndrome does a lot of great old cult films. That's the whole point. Vinegar Syndrome, of course, the name coming from what happens to celluloid if you leave it sitting around too long. It starts to decay and smells like vinegar. But don't put it on food, because celluloid is not edible. Anyway, the first one of these is an old film called Shot, which is kind of it's like a. I want to say it's kind of like a blaxploitation film without black people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Hell yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what it is. But anyway, it's got which is sort of like what the Billy Jack movies are in a sense too, right?
Yeah, they were 100% black exploitation. Billy Jack was a brother, only not walking around handing out brother justice.
There you go. That's it. So anyway, that's
for Native Americans mostly, by the way.
Yeah. So anyway, this is from 1973, and that is exactly what's going on here. And this was made for $15,000 in Champaign, Illinois, by the way. And
go boy.
Yeah, it's got a whole kind of a drug kingpin, drug pusher thing going on, and a lot of gunfight, and some surprisingly good chase scenes and stunt work in here. Totally exploitation, totally 1970s. This has hardly ever been seen before. It was, I think, released briefly on VHS under the title Death Shot, which is not as cool as just Shot. But anyway, they went and found the original 16 millimeter negative, and they restored this thing, and it looks terrific, and it's on Blu-ray, and it's called Shot. And just check it out. It's just a really great piece of daring, ambitious indie filmmaking on 16 millimeter from the 1970s. The other two Vinegar Syndrome films are a little bit more in the predictable vein. One is called Wonder Women, which is, I mean, look at, come on, tell me that's not a classic poster for a 1970s era exploitation movie.
The sister with that fro, the guns,
and you know, like they're just barely covering the cleavage.
Yeah.
Women with guns. One woman on this cover is wearing nothing except panties with a big old belt buckle.
which by the way is a fabulous outfit.
That is a fabulous outfit. That also screams 1973. So that is just terrific. This includes. I wore that once. Now, Wonder Women is all takes place in Australia and the Philippines. Shot in Australia, I think. Set in the Philippines is the conceit here. But anyway, this is kind of one of those escaped women in prison / people on the run movies. There were a lot of those. And you combine that with all those kind of blaxploitation tropes from the era. Get a little bit of martial arts in there, and you're good to go. They also restored this from the 35 millimeter camera original negative. There's a commentary with the director, Robert Vincent O'Neill, who came back for this incredibly. And there's a 2007 screening with a Q&A at the New Beverly Cinema.
Nancy Kwan is in this movie. Sid Haig, who would go on to make all kinds of just horror movies, is in this movie. This is one of the foundational films of the genre. I love it.
It's great. It's just classic exploitation filmmaking, 1973 style.
I was nuts about Nancy Kwan for a long time.
Oh, for sure. And then from 1972, Dear Dead Delilah, and this is a really, really good kind of cheesy psycho film from 1972. Takes place there's a backstory here, which is right before the end of World War II. There's this axe murder, and then we flash forward into the 1970s, and the repercussions of that axe murder are obviously in Norman Bates style, having all kinds of reverberations. And it's got a little bit of that Southern Gothic going on, a little bit of that kind of Norman Bates psycho thing going on. With a little female twist. I just think this movie is a whole lot of fun.
Dude, and Agnes Moorehead.
I was just going to say, Agnes Moorehead
Will
is.
Gear.
Michael and Sarah. Michael and Sarah.
Who's married to Barbara Eaton. Always pissed me off about that. I wanted her. Go on.
Michael and Sarah played the best Klingon they ever had on Star Trek. Yep. It was fantastic.
Gotta love it.
It's terrific. Then we also have Brainscan with Edward Furlong and Frank Langella. Brainscan's a little bit more recent. This is from the 90s. This is about 24 years old. Can't believe the 90s.
You had junk for that movie.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Brainscan is not bad. Edward Furlong was coming right off of Terminator 2 and kind of working that, and this is not bad.
And Frank Langella is never bad.
No
such thing.
Plays a detective here, and this is kind of capitalizing on the early video game hysteria, right? Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of things like the Lawnmower Man from this same period, where you go the opposite direction of Tron. Video games are evil and occultish, and they turn you into psycho killers.
You
and all
get
that
sucked
kind of stuff.
Inside them very often.
Yeah, but anyway, fun. This is one of those movies, but it's perfectly serviceable. Directed by John Flynn, who's done a few things. Went on to be something of a thing. There's an audio commentary that's brand new with Tara George, who was the assistant to the director, Tara George Flynn now. Mm-hmm. And there's also an interview with the screenwriter, Andrew Kevin Walker. A whole bunch of other behind-the-scenes things, a lot of new stuff. Shout really kind of went to the wall on this, and it's, you know what? It's a cult film, and I didn't think it would be at the time. We've also got Return of the Living Dead Part 2, Collector's Edition. This is also from Shout. It's amazing to me how the Living Dead thing just continues to how it took on a life of its own and went, so to speak, went into all these weird tentacles, so to speak. Anyway, look, I mean, it's a pretty standard zombie movie in that vein from the 1980s. There are sort of 60s zombie movies, 70s zombie movies, 80s, 90s, and then current day zombie movies. Yeah. And they're all a little bit different. This is very much an 80s zombie movie. It's not Romero who directed this. It's Ken Wiederhorn, who's also quite good. This is a brand new 2K scan from the Interpositive, so it looks really good. And Suzanne Snyder, who's an actress in it, does new audio commentary. There's also a new commentary with Gary Smart, who is an author and an expert on all this Living Dead stuff. So there's a lot of fun stuff here. Again, Shout Factory via Scream Factory, giving the fans a whole lot of stuff to cheer for. And then the last few here, let me jump into this one. This one's just completely nutty. The Horror of Party Beach. This is from Severin, and Severin goes deep. Let me just tell you, this is from 1963. Things were really raw in 1963. So this is really the early days of exploitation.
Oh, yeah.
And, we talked about this in Schlock, which we made 1 million years ago. This thing was made for $50,000 near Stamford, Connecticut. And the director, Del Tenney, was a real schlockmeister back in the day. And this was billed as the first horror monster musical. Now, here's what's going on. Any movie with beach in the title was sure to get kids to the drive-in. So that's why you got Bikini Beach and Beach Party and everything beach and beach and beach.
Party bingo.
And if you had horror in the party, you were sure to get kids, because then the girls would get scared and they'd cuddle up to the guy, and next thing you know, you're missing the movie, but you're making out in the Impala.
That's your elements. Those are your elements.
That's it.
And there were drive-ins back then, folks.
There were drive-ins. That was the whole thing. Get the kids to the drive-ins. So basically, 1963, Del Tenney decided, I'm going to one-up Corman and Arkoff and all those guys, and I'm just going to merge two genres. We're just going to have monsters on the beach. That's it. We're done. Done deal. Do we have a story? Not really, but we'll figure it out. So I love the tagline here. It is first of all, I mean, look at the picture. It's a totally hokey monster biting a woman in a bikini. It's ridiculous. The tagline is "Weird atomic beasts who live off human blood." I don't even know what that means.
If they're atomic, what do they live?
I don't know what that means. But anyway, a lot of extras here, including an archival interview with Del Tenney and a retrospective documentary, and it's all really, really fun. And this movie's just hilarious. Let's see. I'm going to save that till last. From the AGFA collection. That's not AGFA the film stock. That is AGFA, the American Genre Film Archive, is Renee Harmon's Lady Street Fighter.
No. Yes.
Yeah, right? Here's the thing about exploitation films. This is from 1977. And I said this many times.
There have been so many films called Lady Street Fighter. You got to be real specific.
And I was just, you and I've talked about this too. The origin of the female action hero, that really exists in two stages. It begins in Hong Kong in the 1960s with a lot of martial arts movies where they were unafraid to let women just kick ass, which is part of the whole the literary tradition. And then here in Hollywood, it starts with blaxploitation.
Absolutely.
There are no women kicking ass until Pam Grier and all the rest of them just go nuts.
And as Pam Grier and Jean Bell, and as I point out very often, Pam Grier, at the same time that Steve McQueen was an above the title badass,
that's it.
Pam Grier was too. Pam Grier did everything Steve McQueen did in a movie in the 1970s with a gun and with a baseball bat. She would have to deal with the depretudes of the day, and there were always issues around race and gender. But at the end of the movie, it was always Pam standing tall with that shotgun in her hand. Being the badass like on those boxes. Yeah, in black exploitation, that's very odd that the Me Too movement happened with women in black exploitation films 45 years ago.
Well, Renee Harmon really needs to get a little bit of salute too, because she kind of took a page from what was happening in blaxploitation films, and she kind of became one of the early non-black, one of the first white women to actually become an action hero in an exploitation film, in an independent film. She produced this, she wrote it, and she stars in it. And she does martial arts, and she's out, trying to get revenge for the death of her twin sister. And You know what? It's just you gotta tip your hat to her, and I'm glad that this is out because now people can rediscover Renee Harmon, who is a significant figure. She's an important figure and really worth rediscovering.
That's the kind of film when we talk about remakes and whatnot. Last week on the show, Papillon,
Papillon, yeah.
Which was a terrible mistake.
Yeah,
just a terrible. Just all kind of. First of all, what the hell are you doing? There's a wonderful movie I just talked about. Steve McQueen doesn't know. What you did? So that movie's fine. Number one. Number two. Why are you English people making this French movie? This French story.
The French have never made that story.
And by the way. This is just all wrong. That is not Steve McQueen, and I like Ronnie Malick, Mr. Robot or whatever.
Yeah.
Not Dustin Hoffman.
No.
You people aren't even in the game here. We're talking about Trumbo's script.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Semple Jr. I think
wrote it with Dalton Trumbo. I think so. Yeah.
I mean, stop it, people. Just stop.
Yeah.
Get the hell away from the movie.
Yeah.
That, on the other hand, the lady Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Do that.
Totally. I agree. The last couple of exploitation films here, and then we should jump into some TV probably.
Okay.
Grindhouse double feature from cult film director S.F. Brownrigg. Does that mean anything to you? Probably not. So just know this. These films are both famous, and they're famous because they have great titles. Now, Arkoff, when we made Schlock, told us, he said, we didn't have plots, we didn't have scripts, we had posters and we had titles.
Yeah.
And then you filled in the rest after you sold it based on the poster and the title. These are great titles. And this is why S.F. Brownrigg is a serious exploitation maven. The first one is Don't Look in the Basement.
Now what's going to happen?
And the other one is, they're like, oh, that worked. Let's do another one. And the next one is Don't Open the Door. Right?
Oh, it's just genius.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, honestly, seriously, how does that not, that's just absolutely amazing.
And frankly, for that film, it's not. All you got to do is take, for the poster, just a picture of a door.
It's true.
With its closed.
It's true. It's just brilliant. You have this title, Don't Look in the Basement. Well, I got to see that movie. I want to see what's in the basement.
Why?
But
Why?
I told you, don't look in the basement. I know, but you tell me to do something or not to do something, I'm going to do it.
Oh, God.
And then, no, now that you've looked in the basement, don't open that door. Don't open the other door. Followed by, I told you, stop opening doors. We could go on for years with this.
Yeah, those guys built houses in Beverly Hills.
Don't open the window.
Oh, my God.
Don't open the skylight. Eventually, come, don't go in the doghouse.
The dog is in the doghouse.
And then lastly, if you want to talk about cult films and exploitation films, you just cannot do it without talking about William Castle.
Yeah, that's the man.
The Tingler is now on Blu-ray, and that's thanks to Shout Factory / Scream Factory once again. This is just absolutely brilliant. Now, by the way, important to point out, William Castle made movies for Columbia. These were studio movies. These were not independent films. He had budgets, but he made basically B movies. He made the other movies. He had his own little kind of fringe thing going. So it was sort of like a specialty division at Columbia. Vincent Price is in this along with Daryl Hickman and Philip Coolidge and a whole bunch of other really, really cool people from the era. Vincent Price has just never been better. And it's funny, too, let me just digress for a moment. So a few days ago, it was what would have been the 60th birthday of Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Would have been Michael Jackson's 60th birthday. And I listened to XM radio in the car because there are no commercials. And XM Channel 8, which is 80s music, was playing every other hour, every second hour, they were playing a full hour of nonstop Michael Jackson. So it was pretty much Michael Jackson all day, the whole day. And I was driving around that day, and I must have heard Thriller 5 or 6 times.
No.
Every time I got back in the car, Thriller was on.
1984.
That was so revolutionary. I was an usher at the Man's National Theater, now torn down, when we got word that the new Michael Jackson video is going to debut at the theater. And we're all into MTV, right?
Yeah.
We're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, because that hadn't happened before.
They're like, no. Yeah, we're gonna be showing it on the front of whatever it was, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, whatever we had playing at the time. Might have been Brainstorm. I don't remember what it was. But I remember it was like, really? So because Fridays we got all the new trailers, and then you pop the trailers in the head of the movie. It's like, no, we're gonna get the trailers, but we're also getting Thriller. We're like, why are we putting a music video? Oh, no. It's not just a music video. John Landis
Landis.
directed it. We're like, really? Yeah, it's like a little movie. It's like 10 minutes long. We're like, 10 minutes long? And it was, what was it, $4 million to make
yeah,
or
it was the
something
whole thing.
crazy. And we're like, oh, okay. And I so remember the Wednesday that it arrived. And they popped it up there for a test, and this was after hours. This is like 11:30 at night, right? The 10 o'clock. That we didn't have a 10 o'clock movie, I don't think, during the weekdays. So whatever it was after hours. Everybody was gone, and the projectionist is going to test it. And there we were, we were just the staff of the theater sitting there. We're like, we got to see this. What's going on? And they put it up there, and damn, if that wasn't just the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It was just pushing the envelope, musically, visually, the dance, the makeup. And Vincent Price.
What a
great, I had to go there. Vincent Price, such an icon. Michael Jackson did an amazing thing, and that still is that's a milestone in music video making that has yet to. It'll never be surpassed.
Ola Ray,
it's unique.
The extraordinary Ola Ray, the black actress who was in that movie that pretty much everybody was in love with.
Yeah.
And it was controversial at the time. Do you
It was.
remember?
I do.
The sort of underlying sort of thing. And Michael was forced to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Was he?
Yes, he was, because of that movie. He would not renounce it. He said that there was nothing demonic about it, because and it was just all in good fun. And they said, no, you're going to have to denounce that. He wouldn't do it, and he stopped being a practicing Jehovah's Witness.
I did not know that was the threshold.
Yep.
Wow, no kidding. Well, anyway, coming back from that, Vincent Price in The Tingler, which is one of the films that William Castle did. He used Percepto. This is all explained on the in the extras here. What Percepto was. They talked to Barry Laurie, who was a publicist, and there's an audio commentary with Steve Haberman, who's a film historian, about Percepto and how Castle came up with these gimmicks to market the movies. And anyway, The Tingler is one of the all-time great William Castle movies. You got to see it. It's on Blu-ray from Scream Factory. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Love Mr. William Castle, who also produced a number of actually big films, too.
He did.
I'm not nuts, is William Castle one of the producers of Rosemary's Baby?
Ooh, might
be his son.
Might have been. I'd have to look that
like
up.
But something like that. Yeah. Slockmeister, but not.
No, but if you're a producer, you're a producer.
Yeah.
A solid producer will be a solid producer. I mean, Roger Corman did some legit films too.
Yeah.
But it just you produce what you want to produce. It's not like, I mean, look, if you can put a movie together, you can put together a schlocky low-budget horror film, or you can put together a $150 million epic.
Yeah,
you can put a movie together.
You make the movies for the audience that you're making
you
for
do.
the budget that
That's
they're
it.
going for. Little TV here.
Yep, let's do it.
Supernatural. I'm a big fan of Supernatural. I always have been. Sherman turned me onto this show. I thought it was kind of goofy. We have here the complete 13th season, over 3 hours worth of bonus features, and including some really, really goofy stuff with these guys. I have really just come to thoroughly enjoy the show, which has been on since 2005, by the way. Sometimes when you hit it, you just really hit it. And when you get a show that sort of like catches an audience and can maintain a sort of engaging dynamic for that long, you have really done something amazing. Anyway, all kinds of special features on this thing, including 5 all-new featurettes for introductions to various different seasons, 2 different audio commentaries, some unaired scenes, which are probably a little bit raw. So you want to check that out. And a gag reel. Supernatural, the 13th season. Got to watch some of those again. And that's the other thing about Supernatural. I can watch them over and over again.
Yeah.
Conversely, The Big Bang Theory.
Which is going off the air now,
Which
right?
is going
It's
off the
final
air
season,
now.
yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Never a Big Bang guy.
No, me neither.
Me neither.
No,
Never watched the show that much.
Chuck Lorre, who's a really interesting guy. Chuck Lorre has had quite a career. He was one of the original Roseanne writers, and then he went on to do 2.5 Men.
Yeah.
And then Big Bang Theory surpassed even the success of 2.5 Men. The guy's super rich, really prolific, very smart. One of the last 3 camera guys.
Really?
Who's really, if you think about it, TV comedies are no longer...
situation comedy, 3D
we went from, and it's really interesting because you went from, this is the weird kind of bounce back in TV, right? Everything started with 3 camera in the 1950s, I Love Lucy and all that. And then in the 1960s,
which Desi figured out, by the way.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And the Honeymooners,
Yeah.
and which was like 2 camera. Honeymooners most of the time is 1 camera.
Yeah.
But the show's shot in a studio. And then in the 60s, you went to the single camera comedies, Hogan's Heroes, and Green Acres, and Gilligan's Island,
little movies, basically.
Yeah, little movies. Bewitched, I
no
Dream of
audience,
Jeannie.
shot in the world.
Yeah, with
Gilligan's Island,
laugh tracks, right? All that stuff. And Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s, we moved back to 3 camera again, right?
Rhoda, Miller, Roeder,
All in the
Three's
Family,
Company,
Jeffersons, all that stuff. Three's Company, all that's in
all that Norman Lear.
It's a lot of Norman Lear,
yeah,
a lot of Norman Lear, but we're really in there, and that stays that way into the 80s. We get the Cosby Show, and all it's just on and on and on, and Cheers and Taxi. And we're still there in the 90s, Friends, and all this Chuck Lorre stuff. And then suddenly everything shifts again back to single camera.
Yeah.
And we're back to, American Family.
Yeah. Arrested Development.
Development, right.
Yeah.
And then it goes, The Office, right?
Yeah.
Now we're really deep into that single camera. And there isn't a lot of 3 camera left.
No, that's
Chuck
true.
Lorre is one of the last dedicated 3 camera guys.
Yeah.
I just find that interesting.
And this is the 11th season. Like you said, it's leaving here this year. We've grown up with these guys. Funny. Although across the arc of the show, because start watching these shows, these guys are young, college, whatever. So they're supposed to be 18, 19, maybe.
They have grandchildren.
All that kind of stuff. They're like 35 years old.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, I've the one kid who was on he came over from Roseanne years and years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, really racked up with this show. All kinds of special features on this. 11th season, The Big Bang Theory. Pick it up. The 5th season of The Goldbergs. Again, a show, one of those ABC shows that I really, and the thing of it is, I know that had this show been on in the 80s, which is when it's set, I would have watched it because it would have been made by David Gary Goldberg, whose family it's more or less about, right?
Yep.
And who, of course, Family Ties,
right?
The shows you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So basically, this is a show about a guy who grew up to make television, about his own family growing up before he grew up to make television. And it's really a sweet show. I don't know why I never watched it. There was something about it that was a little too meta for me.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I think I'll just watch the Gary David Goldberg show. That's what I'll do.
Yeah,
5th complete season here.
The 8th season of Hawaii Five-0, which blows my mind. Let me just point this out.
Yeah,
the original Hawaii Five-0, which is a great show, which we've talked about here, which was an edgy show.
Yeah.
That had Jack Lord and that music, and it had one of the first really multi-ethnic casts and those great Hawaiian environments, and it was well written, it was violent, it was cool, it was hip. That thing ran for 12 seasons, and everybody just thought, wow, that's a really good run, man. Yeah. The new Hawaii Five-0 with its generic CBS-looking model, bunch of nobodies, just all uninteresting and interchangeable. Seriously, I don't. Are any of these the original people who were on it? They look the same.
No,
they could be different people. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So this
what's Jimmy Kahn's boy?
Yeah.
He's the only one I ever recognized.
Because he looks like his dad.
Yeah.
But honestly, eight seasons out of this reboot that isn't even a shadow of the original. That's weird to me.
And it's the reason why we see Magnum PI coming back. And it's the reason why we saw that MacGyver come back. It's because
it's not right that Magnum and Hawaii Five-0 are both on at the same time, because the original Magnum PI came on 2 years after Hawaii Five-0 left the air. Because I needed a fix.
Yeah.
I was missing my Hawaii show. It's like, I need the Hawaii show. And Magnum came on. I'm like, I'm good.
We're back.
I'm good. I'm back to the islands.
Yeah.
Anyway, 8th season of Hawaii Five-0. I don't care for the show. It's got a decent cast. It's got decent production value. You just can't help but compare it to the original.
That word generic.
It just feels generic.
And I have a very sinking feeling in my stomach regarding that new Magnum PI coming along. And I like Jay Hernandez, by the way. Big fan.
I do too.
But no.
Well, anyway, if they'd called it something other than Hawaii Five-0, I might be a little bit more forgiving. But the bar is very high for using that title. So in any case, continues to be an anchor of the CBS lineup, and there is about an hour of behind-the-scenes stuff, mostly culled from EPK and promotional materials, and a gag reel.
Some Rowan and Martin's Laugh In, the complete sixth
There you go.
season, 24 episodes on 6 DVDs. And this is the sixth and final season of Laugh In. So, when they say goodnight dick on this one, they actually mean it. And so, what can you say about Laugh In? Just fantastic, iconic, a time capsule for its period. And oddly, because, these run on television all the time on some of the little odd channels around.
Yeah.
You look over at the television, you see laugh, you hear a joke, and you think to yourself, that joke could be told today.
Yep.
You change a noun here or there, and that joke is just as funny, just as relevant,
And as we have talked about, Laugh In inspired a lot of other television. It inspired a lot of variety shows. It inspired Hee Haw.
Yeah.
Hee Haw came about specifically because of Laugh In, because a bunch of country folk and hicks and rednecks down in Tennessee and Alabama said, we could make that show for our people.
Yeah.
And they did, and they made Hee Haw.
Yeah, and it was fantastic, by the way. I grew up in the Midwest. I was a big old Hee Haw fan.
Yep.
Yeah, the complete sixth season, 6 DVDs, 24 episodes. Everybody out there, look, you got Lily Tomlin. You got everybody that you can possibly think of. It was on this season of Laugh In.
The very wonderful show from Acorn TV, British show, The Good Karma Hospital Series 2 is out on Blu-ray, and this continues to be a really good show. Season 2 is even better. This is all about this is a UK show that deals with a rural Indian hospital, and I guess you could say it's like how would you put this? It's not really Grey's Anatomy-ish, but it's kind of like somewhere between Grey's Anatomy. You know what this is? This is the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel with a hospital.
Ah,
there you go.
Yeah,
with a little dash, of Grey's Anatomy or something. But really great cast. That's why you watch this. It's a tremendous cast. Amrita Acharya, who's been seen previously in Game of Thrones, it plays a transplant doctor and is just absolutely tremendous. So is Amanda Redman and Philip Jackson. These are all just really, really fine actors, and they make for a great cast, and it's really sharp writing. And it's just a wonderful backdrop, too. So a tremendous show, even better in its Series 2, and definitely check it out. Neil Morrissey also in the cast.
Fantastic. Adventure Time, the final seasons. So Adventure Time, I thoroughly enjoyed this. This cartoon. It's about this boy, his brother, and his best friend, and their dog, and they have adventures.
Nice.
Protecting the land of or whatever. Yeah. It's just so fun. And this is fantastic. So if you've been watching this, you'll love this. All kinds of exclusive extras dedicated to this. Adventure Time, the final seasons. Bull.
Oh, Bull, the last one, yeah.
Yeah, Bull. Season 2 of Bull. You know what? Another show that I started with it. Checked it out. It was interesting. A little bit too ordinary for me. I mean, I got to tell you, CBS has a way of creating. They have a dynamic over at CBS.
Sure.
And I'm sure it sells, and I'm sure it services their audience, but I haven't been a part of that dynamic for a while. They really live in a very particular zone. And this I don't particularly get. He's not a lawyer. He's a guy. He's like a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Yep.
And when he figures out what the psychology is, feels a little monkish a little bit. He's quirky, that kind of guy. Michael Weatherly's a charming fellow. So season 2 of Bull, over an hour of special features on the DVD.
All right, and we're going to hit up some more classic movies now, but more recent stuff and more mainstream stuff than culty. We got to give away. We're giving away 2 copies of the 4K Ultra HD Jack Ryan collection, 5 films with a whole bunch of different Jack Ryans. We got The Hunt for Red October, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, Sum of All Fears, and Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit. Now, the thing is, Jack Ryan is now a television show.
Yeah, Krasinski, John
Krasinski's the new Jack Ryan.
They tried to reboot those movies with one of those with the guy that plays Captain Kirk also.
Oh yeah,
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine is in Shadow Recruit. So he's on that film is on this. That's the 5th of this. We got a couple of them with Harrison Ford. One of them with Ben Affleck, who's in rehab again, and the other one, of course, with Alec Baldwin in Hunt for Red October. So all the Jack Ryans, except for the TV series, which is new on what is it? It's not Netflix. It's on Hulu. Is it a Hulu show?
I think it might be a Hulu show. It's a streaming show, maybe even Amazon. But it's one of the streamers.
We'll find it. Anyway, so they've 4K'd this whole thing up, and obviously some of these are better than the others. The 2 Harrison Ford films, Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, those are the far and away the best of this. Those it doesn't even come close. There's other good stuff here. Hunt for Red October, directed by John McTiernan, who also furnishes the commentary. And then there's a bunch of extras on that. That's really, really good. And most of the extras here are on the two that are least interesting to me, which is Sum of All Fears, the Ben Affleck one, and then the Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit. Tons and tons of special features on that, including a commentary by Kenneth Branagh, who directed it. That's all fun and fine and well. So, look, we're giving away 2 copies of this. If you're a fan of the books, you got to have this. It's just a lot of different ways to slice and dice Jack Ryan, and the 4K transfers are superb. Paramount did a fantastic job with this, and really pulled out all the stops. So, and by the way, here's what's also interesting: a little tidbit. The ratings of these films. Hunt for Red October is rated PG. The Clear and Present Danger, Sum of All Fears, and Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit are all PG-13. Patriot Games, rated R.
Interesting.
And Patriot Games is the best of all
all the movies, yeah.
Isn't that interesting? That's where you get to actually be really Jack Ryan. So just send us an email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com, either one, and put Ryan, R-Y-A-N, in the subject line. Put your name and address in the body of the email, and make sure it gets to us by September 10th. September 10th. You're going to have a good long time to get this going, September 10th. And we will pick a couple of very lucky winners and have Paramount make you very happy. So that is Jack Ryan 5-film collection. Email to gods@digigods or gods@cinegods.com with Ryan in the subject line and name and address in the body of the email.
A couple of movies?
Yes.
Bound.
Now, here's an interesting thing about Bound. We should point out, anybody who's buying Bound, don't pay attention to the extras. There's a misprint on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a misprint on the extras.
I was just about to go through a number of things identified here.
So the extras are a little bit more bare bones there. So there's you're basically getting this for the fact that Bound is on Blu-ray.
Bound on Blu-ray, which look, buy Bound for Bound. It's 1996. This movie.
Yeah.
Lily and Lana Wachowski, then known as the Wachowski. It's been so long that I've actually forgotten what their names were. Before Lily and Lana,
I just know Wachowski.
I
don't even go. I just say the Wachowskis.
Whatever
you want to be, that's fine. I'm just gonna refer to you in the plural by your name and be what you're gonna be.
There goes the Wachowski.
Yeah.
Odd that this was groundbreaking LGBTQ cinema at the time. We didn't
nobody
know.
Nobody knew.
Apparently the brothers didn't know it, or the sisters didn't even know it. Not then, or if they did, they weren't telling anybody. This movie was just absolutely brilliant, intense.
It is amazing.
Gina Gershon in the movie, Jennifer Tilly in the movie, Joey Pants in the movie. Just a tight little. Almost one-room thriller.
See, that's what was amazing, and I remember at the time. This was around the same time that you wrote Bad Guys, which got made and won some awards at the Beverly Hills Film Festival. And I remember we talked about this relative to what you were doing in Bad Guys. That it was a great example of how to make a movie that is claustrophobic in a very limited space, but open it up in the way that it's written, so it doesn't feel like it. Like if people think back on Bound. And you go, it mostly takes place basically in the same 2 rooms. You're like, no, it doesn't. It's got, well, wait a minute. And you have to think twice about it.
That's mostly in those, and it's the stories they tell. And of course, Quentin, he figured that out a little bit before, and the brothers stuff. It's good stuff. And by the way, just one of the sexiest damn movies ever made.
It really is.
It really is. I always loved Tucker, A Man in His Dream from Francis Ford Coppola. I always thought this was a fantastic film about a wonderful story. Yeah. So beautifully shot and produced. It felt like a film of the era that it was from, which is set in the 30s and 40s, but it felt like it was a film set there. And, and this story, particularly, this is 1988, kind of, right before the people like Steve Jobs and these sort of big folks started to happen, right out on up to what's Tesla boy over there. Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And this is the story of those kinds of guys only 60 years ago.
Yep.
Who didn't quite make it.
Yep.
But we drive around in cars. When you drive around in cars now, a lot of what's happening in the car that you're driving now is stuff that this dude thought of.
Not airbags, but seatbelts.
Seatbelts, and tracking headlights, all kinds of stuff.
Great
Audio
stuff.
Commentary from Francis Ford Coppola and an introduction, deleted scenes, featurettes.
Now, this is the first time this has been on something other than DVD. Now, they sent us the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
This is also out on 4K. They have not yet sent us the 4K.
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
insisting on the 4K because this is Vittorio Storaro, who shot the living daylights out of this thing, and it's almost over photographed. So we really want to check out the what Storaro's cinematography looks like in 4K on this.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
we're waiting on that.
It was a romantic period, and this film captured that romanticism.
It did.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Yeah. Great music, by the way.
Oh yeah.
By Joe. The stepping out guy.
Oh
the piano guy. What's his name? Why can I not think of his name?
It's
so annoying. Hold on, bear with me. Joe Jackson.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joe Jackson. It's just a cool kind of jazzy period score. It's really great. All right, I'm going to hit a few here from Twilight Time and the Warner Archive Collection. Twilight Time. Go to twilightimemovies.com to get your fix on these. We have some. This is a great quartet this month. I mean, a great quartet. A little bit of cult, a little bit of familiar, a little bit of odd. All of it really, really worth checking out. The Hot Rock. Remember, these are limited editions, so they only make about 5,000 of these, and you got to get it while you get it, and then when it's gone, it's gone. Peter Yates, one of the great directors of actors, made The Hot Rock in 1972, which is this cool caper movie that precedes The Sting, which came out the following year, and for my money, actually has a better performance by Robert Redford. But as a kind of a caper heist movie at a time when there were a lot of these, taking a Pelham 123 and the Brinks Job, and there were a lot of these in the mix at the time. The Italian Job, right? There were a lot of these that were kind of getting made. A lot of heisty movies, and the Hot Rock really is the most interesting because it's such a bizarre and offbeat take on it. And the subject of this is the Sahara Stone. And to appreciate why this thing is so unusual and why it invites such an unusual collection of characters to chase it, you've got Zero Mostel and Moses Gunn and Robert Redford and George Segal and Paul Sand. I mean, this is just a really fascinating collection of people, a great cast, and such an interesting movie the way it's put together with a terrific, terrific screenplay by William Goldman, who was a god then and is a god now. John Cassavetes' Gloria, starring his wife Jenna Rollins, on Blu-ray. What more can you say about this? I mean, it's just they remade this.
It was about 84.
This was 1980.
80, yeah.
Yep, 1980. This is kind of Cassavetes getting it all together. It is. It's arguably his most commercial film, his most well-known film. It's not very fringy like Faces and a lot of those other things he made just with
Killing of a Chinese bookie and all that.
All the stuff he made with like 5 people and a $1.50.
Seymour Castle and Peter.
But really, this got an Oscar nomination for Jenna Rollins, very deservedly, and it's a wonderful character study. It's a wonderfully written film. It has a great score by Bill Conti, which is available here as an isolated track.
Female lead.
Tremendous. I mean, it's the role that she will always be known for.
Yeah. They remade it with Sharon Stone.
Yeah,
middle '90s,
Sharon
maybe
Stone.
Something like that. Yeah,
not as good.
Yeah,
not as good. Kind of like the problems with Papillon.
Yeah.
A little bit. And then a really kind of unusual movie from left field, The Virgin Soldiers, which was made in 1969. And this takes place, made in 1969, but takes place in 1950 during the Malayan Emergency. And if you're like me, you're like, I don't really know what the Malayan Emergency was. You will learn. It is a significant piece of history from Southeast Asia that coincides with a moment during the Vietnam War, and it's kind of fallen between the cracks. And it's a really important piece of history, and the way that it is, that plays a part in this story, which is very much kind of in the vein of, I want to say Catch-22, MASH, those kinds of absurdist military comedies that aren't quite comedies. They're using comedy to make a more serious statement. This does a little bit of that, too. Really fascinating movie that just kind of comes from left field. Great cast, including Lynn Redgrave and Nigel Davenport. I mean, Carl Foreman wrote this, was an executive producer, and I'm going to assume had something to do with the screenplay as well. But check it out, The Virgin Soldiers. Really, really interesting movie from 1969. And then lastly, Brandon Lee, the late Brandon Lee, and Powers Booth in Rapid Fire, which I would not have expected to be a Twilight Time release. because I didn't think the movie was all that good in 1992. But you know what? It kind of it dates well. It's sort of iconic of its period, and Brandon Lee is a real loss. Much better actor, I think, than we gave him credit for at the time. Basically, a straight up kind of police film from the era, with Powers Booth as a kind of a tough lieutenant who recruits this art student played by Jason Lee, and it gets into a lot of that kind of that lethal weapon-y territory, but sort of like a second-tier Lethal Weapon. But nonetheless, it's a good movie to resurrect from the era. Rapid fire.
Indeed. A couple over here.
Yep.
A Walking Tall. Dwayne Johnson when he still had a little bit of hair. Just a little sheen of hair. 2004. This film, Johnny Knoxville. Also in it, more or less a remake of the 1973 Joe Don Baker film, Buford Pusser, more or less. One might say.
I love Walking Tall. I don't care who plays Buford Pusser. I really don't. Bo Svensson was fine. Dwayne Johnson's fine. Joe Don Baker.
He's not really even playing Buford Pusser in this movie. He's playing this other guy, but it's the same name, and they do all the same stuff. So, what the hell? Go ahead and do it. Anyway, this movie was probably he looks so young in this movie. This 2004.
I know.
He looks like a baby.
I know.
Who had been breaking people up. Saw him in an episode of Star Trek. I think maybe Voyager. The other day.
Yeah.
He looked like he was 19 years old. It was
Crazy,
just fantastic.
Right?
Anyway, Tideland, Terry Gilliam film. Terry Gilliam used to be one of my favorite filmmakers on the planet.
And they started going loopy.
12 Monkeys and all that. This is an intense movie. I'll give him that. Tideland's a movie about a rocker family, and they're drug addicts, and they're terrible junkies, and they have this daughter. Somebody dies. The father takes the daughter, goes off to this sort of a decrepit estate that's a part of his family, and he just keeps doing drugs, and his daughter has to figure out a way to make a life for herself, and she more or less retreats into her fantasy land, which is where Terry Gilliam lives.
And I wanted to like this movie so much. I did, but it doesn't come together.
Yeah, I mean, the guy from this is where Terry went sideways to me when he stopped building things. Terry made all those. You think about Time Bandits, and you think about Terry built things.
Yeah.
No CGI.
Yeah.
He would build a giant this and a giant that, and all that kind of. Terry built things. Then there came a moment in the middle 2000s or so when everybody was doing CGI everything, and Terry started doing CGI. No, Terry Gilliam is a guy who builds things.
Yeah.
CGI. No.
What makes Brazil so enthralling is that there is no CGI, and all of that stuff with the giant samurai, where Jonathan Pryce is fighting the giant samurai in his armor with the wings. The reason that is so amazing is because he's doing the same thing there that he did in Time Bandits, which is he's playing with perspective and forced perspective and all those old silent era camera tricks. If you watch Brazil really closely, that's a little person playing Jonathan Pryce. He went and put a little person in armor so that an average-sized person dressed as a giant samurai, it would have this amazing impact.
You do that. You use a 24 millimeter lens. You mess with your depth of field, and you create
cheaper.
And it's cheaper, and it's all it's all actually there. It's all actually in the room. Anyway, that's it.
All right. Before we get to new movies, just a few final ones. First, from the Warner Archive. We've got one DVD-R and then a couple of Blu-rays from the Warner Archive collection. And the DVD-R is called Way Back Home. I had never heard of this, so I got it from him. I said, I've got to check this out. This is utterly fascinating to me. What is this? This is from Radio Pictures. It's now obviously in the Warner, originally an RKO production, but Radio Pictures was the production end of RKO. RKO did the distribution. That's how it was kind of broken up. So this was a Radio Pictures presentation starring Seth Parker and his Jones Sport neighbors. Now I'm thinking, what? What is this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so Seth Parker was a radio figure. And this was one of those deals where somebody had become famous on radio, and they decided, we're going to stick them in the movies and let people see them. We're going to take that person that you listen to every week, and we're going to put them in a movie so that now you get to see what they look like, and we'll make you pay. And that's a thing that actually happened. It mostly happened going from radio to television, like with Lucille Ball. And very often, people who did movies would wind up on radio when the movies weren't paying the bills anymore.
Yeah, and they were still doing a sort of narrative. Yeah,
Yeah, but in a few instances, you had radio personalities that jumped to the movies. Burns and Allen being a key example.
Yep.
George Burns and Gracie Allen went from radio personalities to making movies, and so for a moment, Seth Parker and his Jonesport neighbors were a thing. Now this is this guy Seth Parker is you got to Google him. He's a fascinating figure. I was totally unaware of him, but this is basically just kind of rural American. What would you say? This is it's basically just sort of almost like vaudeville in movies. It's a little bit of everything. And all kind of the movie is an excuse just to have some songs and some bits, and they kind of wrap it all together in a very haphazard way. But America at the time was still a mostly rural country, and that's why movies like this resonated then and don't necessarily resonate right now. What is also significant here, what makes this very interesting, is a very young Bette Davis, then under contract to Warner Brothers, shows up in this movie as well, and that's a wonderful little link to what would be a very, very prosperous future for Warner Brothers. So this really is a kind of a neat little movie. It's called Way Back Home with this Seth Parker figure. And then the other two from Warner Archive, Frank Sinatra and Gina Lollobrigida in Never So Few, which is a very nicely made Edmund Granger produced, John Sturges directed CinemaScope film that in that true World War II John Sturges thing. Now, John Sturges, of course, did the Dirty Dozen or The Great Escape. The Great Escape. I always get those mixed up. Did The Great Escape, and which is just beautiful all-star widescreen wartime filmmaking, and this is a little bit of the same thing. This is all takes place with Steve McQueen's in this as well. This all takes place in World War II era Burma. And Sinatra is leading these guerrilla fighters who are, they got a mission to do, and there's a whole thing. So it feels a little bit in like that Dirty Dozen, Great Escape vein. It definitely is. But ultimately, the real reason you're watching this is because Gina Lollobrigida is just so unbelievably gorgeous. Freaking gorgeous beyond all belief. Also on Blu-ray from the Warner Archive collection is Home from the Hill with Robert Mitchum and Eleanor Parker, and a great supporting cast that includes George Hamilton and George Peppard and Everett Sloan. Really fun stuff. A very unusual directing effort for Vincent Minnelli, who's not typically known for like melodramas. He's known for musicals. But this is basically a melodrama and takes place in the backwoods of Texas. And Robert Mitchum and Eleanor Parker are doing that thing that you normally expect John Wayne to do with any number of other actresses. It's good. And again, it appeals primarily to a rural audience, but Mitchum just cuts a huge figure. It's beautiful cinematography, and based on a novel, if you've read the novel, by William Humphreys. So really, really nice movie. And then the last two, before we get into a handful of new movies, are Merrily We Live, which is an old Hal Roach movie. This is from Classic Flicks. ClassicFlix.com is where you would go to check this out. Constance Bennett, Brian Ahern, an absolutely lovely screwball comedy, romantic comedy that really kind of has fallen between the cracks a little bit. Made in 1938, beautiful black and white photography, and really terrific, tight direction from Norman Z. MacLeod, who was a good workmanlike director at the time. Constance Bennett is kind of a lost treasure in many respects. I wish she had had a bigger and longer career because she's just so delightful.
Yeah.
Kind of in that Irene Dunn way. I just really, really enjoy it. This is if you like things like Bringing Up Baby, if you like stuff like The Thin Man, you will absolutely adore this. Brian Ahern and Constance Bennett in Merrily We Live from 1938. And then lastly, the great Louis Milestone, who made All Quiet on the Western Front, one of the early Oscar winners for Best Picture. In 1928, right about the same time, he made The Garden of Eden, which is a romantic comedy, totally uncharacteristic of the other stuff that he was doing at the time. And this is coming out to us from Flickr Alley. You should definitely check this out. This is a real fascinating chunk of film history, beautifully made. and it has some great extras on it, including Hollywood the Unusual, which is a 10-minute travelogue of Los Angeles from 1927, and then production stills and the original digital press book. Really, really terrific. From Flicker Alley, The Garden of Eden by Louis Milestone, and that is a Blu-ray manufacturer on demand release, MOD. So you got to go to flickeralley.com for that one.
Love that.
New movies.
A couple of new movies.
Yeah,
Hereditary. Everybody just loved this movie. This horror movie from Toni Collette.
Yeah.
Ari Aster film. You're not going to talk about it at all.
Is it that scary?
It is very.
Okay.
It's a modern day horror masterpiece.
Okay.
In terms of that, it absolutely is. It's a no kidding around, gonna get in your head kind of movie. It's about a family. In this home that they live in and what's going on there. This has all kinds of special features on it, a few special features on it, including some deleted scenes, which I wish I had watched because I can't imagine what else could be there. Toni Collette, absolutely extraordinary in this film. Think about her, this, and you got to take her all the way back to the great horror film, Bruce Willis and The Sixth Sense.
Yep.
Yeah, she's great at that. At the other end of the spectrum, Johnny Knoxville doing that Johnny Knoxville thing, and Action Point, which is about a guy who builds his own theme park, dangerous theme park, where children could possibly be killed.
No, lovely.
Johnny Knoxville doing that thing.
Talking about it on Film Week today, too. Talking about Bloodfest, which should not be confused with Hellfest, which is basically the same movie coming out in 4 weeks. A little bit tired of it.
A little bit tired of this, too.
Jurassic Park did that. Stop doing it, people.
Yeah,
Just don't go there.
Johnny Knoxville, I've been ragging on this guy for 20 years now.
Yeah.
He can buy and sell me, so I should shut up.
And then the last two we're going to cover this week. The first one is Adrift, which is a kind of a boilerplate movie with Shailene Woodley and Sam Claflin about a couple of people. This guy and this gal, they fall in love.
Loosely based on a true story.
Loosely based on a true story. They fall in love, so they go out on a boat for a 4-hour cruise. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. A 4-hour tour. Yeah, well, what happens is they run into a hurricane.
Yeah.
And their tiny boat was tossed, and next thing you know, damn it, they're there with the skipper and the movie star and the millionaire and his wife.
I remember Marianne.
No, it doesn't. It's like Gilligan's Island without an island, without comedy. But it's a survival tale.
Yeah.
It's nice to have two people as opposed to Robert Redford in a boat.
Well. All is lost. Well, look, that movie has Shailene Woodley in it.
Which
frankly,
is the big
that's
plus.
the only thing that I really care about.
Yeah, it's nice. It's well done.
Yeah.
It's touching, and Shailene Woodley is great.
Yeah.
And it doesn't break new ground or anything, but it's fine. And then lastly, we're going to say a few things about Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Which is on 4K Ultra HD, which was a bit of a controversial thing because there was a fallout between Ryan and the director after the first film. They want to go in this direction and that direction. I just want to say I don't care what the fallout was. This movie is funny as hell.
Yeah, funnier than the first movie.
Funnier than the first movie, a lot funnier.
I like it most because Zazie, who they put on the box
on top of him,
on top, and
Yes.
and that is the thing that makes that movie work. The movie
Yeah.
is that she
kills it.
She kills it in that movie.
And
she's the star of the movie.
He is unafraid to let
To
her
let
be
her
the
have
star.
it. To let her be the star of the movie.
Just so you understand, she has a super he puts a ragtag team of people
Domino. I
together.
think she plays Domino.
She plays Domino. A ragtag team of people together who are presumably going to be his version of the Avengers.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite work out that way. Some of them are better than others. Some survive better than others. But she is the one that you're laughing at first. You're like, yeah, right.
What's her superpower? I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's not a superpower.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. Yes, it is. And when you find out how super she is, it just owns the movie.
Awesome.
Owns the movie. And, the other nice thing is that even though this comes from 20th Century Fox, which is now part of Disney, so it's not quite as funny, but they're very, very aware of the fact that that Josh Brolin is about to be in the Avengers movie as the villain, and he's kind of a villain here too.
Yeah.
And there are some cheeky, elbows because these movies were released about 2 or 3 weeks apart. So knowing that going in, that joke doesn't work quite as well now that Infinity War came out right about the same time. And anyway, timing's not as good on home entertainment, but first time in a theater, that's
that'll crack you up.
Lots of extras here. The 4K Ultra HD looks tremendous. The gag reel is hilarious. The deleted and extra scenes are just terrific. All the stuff on here is worth watching. And the audio commentary with Ryan Reynolds and David Leitch, Rhett Reese, and Paul Wernick is terrific. That's only on the theatrical version, not on the extended version. So just know that. But otherwise, everything on here is worth listening to, watching again and again and again. It's hilarious.
Yes.
Great stuff. So with that, we are done for this week, and we will see you guys next week.